We are definitely meeting at a critical moment, the closing weeks of a year that has unfortunately been marked by immense challenge and instability, as I already mentioned, the Economist report showed us. The other week I was in Washington, D.C. and made a similar speech, and I was asked the tough question, how is really the global economy doing? And I was wondering how to respond to that. And I had to be candid, as also Ghida asked us to be, and I said, the global economy is worse than last year, but better than next year. That's unfortunately the situation, but I think this meeting is also about how to change that path. Are there things we can do to improve the current situation? Of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a terrible break of humanitarian law and also international law, and has cost thousands of lives and uprooted 14 million people from their homes. We know also that we are seeing an energy crisis, the first one since 1972. Oil prices has been like a roller coaster. During the pandemic, the oil price collapsed. Then it suddenly shot up to $120 US per barrel over the summer, and now I think it sits about right $80 US. So it shows also the volatility that we are faced with. And this, among other things, because of the instability of the global value chains, we have seen inflation close to 8% in the largest economy in the world, in the US. It's still 25% of the global economy, the US, with 5% of the population. And the inflation now in Europe is 10%. This is the highest levels in 40 years. And although pressure appears to be easing, the European Central Bank warned last week it hasn't peaked in the Eurozone at 10%. This turbulence is straining and already brittle global economy. And our economist has forecasted that global growth will slow from 6% last year to 3.2% this year, with a global recession looming ahead. We just don't know how it's going to look next year. So to avoid repeating the low growth that took place during the 1970s, we had a decade with low growth. We really need now to agree on a global growth agenda. And this will be one of the main topics also for our annual meeting at the World Economic Forum taking place in January in Davos, how to revive growth. And to revive growth, we have to continue to trade and invest. Without a trade recovery, there will be no real recovery. If we continue with this beggar thy neighbor instead of prosper your neighbor strategy, we will shave off a lot of growth in the years to come, and we will see growing poverty rate for the first time in 3 decades. And along with these economic and security challenges, the energy crisis, as I mentioned, is still unfolding, and the planet continues to warm at an alarming rate. Let's not forget that. The only way we can solve these challenges and unlock new opportunities ahead is through purpose-driven collaboration. Thankfully, despite the growing risk of fracture, there have been some bright signs over the last several weeks. In November, the US and China sat together in Bali and restored a climate dialogue. That's crucial. This is almost 50% of the global economy, and a lot of the global emission comes from these two big economies. And the G20 reaffirmed the need for greater economic cooperation and also to stop nuclear proliferation. The nuclear piece, I'm really worried. Of course, these consensus in these areas are encouraging, but we need also to be realistic. Because in today's geopolitical context, and at the time when the United Nations has warned time is running out to meet our global goals, we can't take collaboration for granted, which is why we need the private sector to be part of the fabric of cooperation. This is, of course, one of the key recommendations also in the Economist report that we just saw being presented, for more collaboration between businesses and between businesses and government is crucial, critical. More and more companies are, though, stepping up, particularly when it comes to priorities like reaching net zero targets and making purpose-driven investments. Hydro, for instance, has said it wants to be a front runner in low carbon and zero carbon practices and help move the industry toward these goals. Congratulations and thank you for that leadership. And at the World Economic Forum, we are also bringing together governments and businesses for initiatives such as the First Movers Coalition, which is aligning more than 60 companies globally, many of them Fortune 100 companies, including Apple and Amazon, in making green purchasing commitments, using their purchasing power to green their supply side. No, as we chart the course for the year ahead, it is time for business to commit to working with one another to bring about positive change, because it is the only way toward a stronger future. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for bringing such a great conference together on those critical topics.